Hello and welcome to today's video where I'm going to talk to you about drywall and more specifically how to securely fasten something to it and using like a drywall anchor or screws and what the application for that might be. The first thing is to understand why you might want to use something like a drywall anchor like this. And the reason is that drywall, unlike wood, the material is much more crumbly. And so once you start drilling a hole, it's not going to have the same rigidity and it tends to crumble and get much smoother. Where wood can hold like the screw spirals inside of it, drywall is more likely to become crumbled, smooth, and pull out easier, which you don't want. So drywall is like a plaster type material and it's commonly found in houses on the walls. And so, for example, if you're doing a picture frame, hanging something up, it's going to be very useful to understand how to use a drywall anchor. A drywall anchor is a small plastic piece that has an opening and it has two parts that basically open, that as it screws down, it's going to open up like this so that it's going to have some clamping force on the back side and not just rely on the screw's threads, but going to rely on the friction of expanding out and creating a locking mechanism on the other side of the wall. If you're only going to be using a couple pounds on a wall or really light, it's probably okay to use a screw. If you are, I recommend like this right here is 1 5/8 inch drywall screws. So these are specific to drywall because they have a very thick thread. And so you don't want something that's too thin, that's like a nail, that's just going to slide right out. You want something thick with a good thread on it like this right here, which if I'm doing something light, I'm okay with this, but if I'm doing some heavier paintings or mirror, I'm going to want a drywall anchor. Say above 3 pounds, that's when you're going to want to switch from just a screw to a drywall anchor if you want some longer use. On over 3 pounds, I really wouldn't recommend just using a screw if you want it to last. So once you've determined that you need some more strength, then you're going to need to know, what do you need? You're going to need a screw, which luckily this drywall screw actually works fine on this drywall anchor. And that's the 2 parts for fastening. Also, you're going to need, but recommended a pencil and a measuring tape or a ruler or something to determine where you're going to mount it. You're also going to need a drill and a drill bit, which we'll talk about that size in a minute, and a hammer to tap it in. The first step, as I mentioned, is find that hole where you're going to want it. So for this right here is not drywall, so it's not going to work the same way, but it'll be good for illustration purposes. So I believe it's a 1/4 inch thick. Say we want it right there, going to mark it. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is find the size drill bit that you can hit this in. I got this good set here. It's a little old Craftsman, but it gets it done. So we'll take a look. And I always like to look at the back end of a drill bit because that shows the same size as the top, but it's going to allow me to line it up and see the sizing of it. You don't want it too big that it's just going to slide in and out, but this right here, you don't want it too small either. And what you can do, say I do something like this, and you can see it's a little bit small, so I got my drill right here. I'm going to go here securely. Got that hole right there. This right here I think is going to be a little bit too small, so once I do it, this right here is only plastic, and so you really don't want to hammer it with too much force. So you might be able to bend it in and stuff, but you don't want that. It's going to bend, it's going to break. So if you did it too small, that's okay. And I always recommend going smaller. And if you aren't fully sure, I recommend going smaller and working your way up because you can always get a little bit bigger, but once you get too big, you cannot go really smaller. And so you might need to patch that hole and it might be ruined. So got this one right here. Maybe it's 95% of the size and 90% of the size. So I think it might be good. So we'll test that out. It probably says in the package somewhere what size drill bit, but I'm just eyeballing it. And once you already have that hole, it's pretty easy to just punch that right through. So this feels decent. This table is not too sturdy, so once I get it, yep, that's perfect. So it's giving me a little bit of resistance, but it's sliding in still nicely. So I'm going to hammer that in. You can see on this side, I'll show you in a minute, that it's gonna stick up a little bit, but it's still gonna sink right through, and did that nicely. So that's done with the drill and the hammer. The next part is to get your screw. You're gonna get your screw, and you can either use a screwdriver or a drill, which in this case, my drill has a Phillips. This is a Phillips, so plus sign head on it, just opening it up. And so once I do this, you'll be able to see. I'll adjust the camera in a second, but then you're gonna start to screw it in. I'll bring the camera close so you can see. All right, so I brought you closer now. With this, usually you're gonna wanna drill it, not all the way, because you're gonna want some way to mount it. So I'm gonna take this right here with my drill, and I'm gonna slowly start to drive it in, and you're gonna see what happens as it clamps in. And you can see it's gonna start to expand out until once you get here, and then that force is gonna widen out, and then it's gonna be much harder for me to pull that through because it's got that force. So this one right here probably isn't the greatest example, but there are other ones that will expand out even more, all the way to vertical, and really lock that in place. The name of the game here is surface area. If you just have a screw, it's gonna have a very small shank, and it's gonna be able to pull through too easily. If you have something like this, you're gonna distribute that weight a lot more. And the same thing can happen if I undo it. It's gonna have the ability to squeeze in, just for demonstration, so you can see how that works. And again, I probably would leave it maybe 1/4 inch so that you can put your picture frame or mirror in there. But hopefully this gives you a good idea of how to install a drywall anchor. If you like this video and want more, you can visit our YouTube channel or our website at rdawg.com. That's rdawg.com. Thanks for watching. Hope you had a great day and learned something. Let us know. Bye.